There are men and women who will never respect you. No matter your kindness, no matter your virtue. To tolerate this is weakness. To answer it wrongly is ruin. But to master it is power. In this lesson, I will show you 6 ruthless ways to deal with those who dare to disregard your worth. Respect is not freely given. It is extracted, like tribute from a conquered city. The world does not bow to fairness, it bows to strength. Those who ignore you are not merely indifferent. They are testing you, weighing the limits of your pride and your resolve. To handle such people is not about comfort, but about control. If you fail, you invite more contempt. If you succeed, you bend them, subtly or brutally, into acknowledging your dominion. Tonight, we sharpen the tools of this dark craft. Respect does not thrive in abundance. It grows in absence. Have you ever noticed how people value you most when you are no longer there? When your voice is missing, when your presence is withheld, suddenly the air feels heavier, the silence louder. Scarcity sharpens appreciation. This is a principle as old as power itself. Consider the rulers of old, kings and princes who never allowed themselves to be too familiar. They appeared rarely, yet when they entered a room, the very air seemed to bend. Why? Because their distance created a hunger. Their absence became a kind of myth. If you are always available, you become ordinary. And the ordinary is never respected. Think of the Roman generals who returned from victorious campaigns. While they could have basked daily in the admiration of the people, they did not. They retreated. They withdrew into silence, letting whispers of their greatness circulate like wildfire. By the time they returned to public view, the respect had swollen into reverence. Now ask yourself, how often do you hand out your presence cheaply? Do you answer every call, every message, every demand on your time? If so, you have already surrendered authority. Understand this: the human mind is wired to desire what it cannot easily have. Scarcity fuels value. Psychologists call it the scarcity principle, a bias so strong it drives people to fight, to compete, to destroy one another simply for what is limited. Gold is only stone made rare, and you, if you wish to command respect, must become gold. Withdraw strategically, not in anger, not in sulking, but in silence. A silence that forces others to wonder where you are, what you are thinking, and why they no longer enjoy your presence. In that vacuum, respect begins to grow. Even in personal relationships, this principle reigns. The friend who is always available becomes background noise. The lover who never withdraws loses their mystery. But the one who steps back, who vanishes into the shadows, creates tension, uncertainty, and longing. Respect is born from that unease. Consider the chessboard. A piece constantly moved without purpose loses its strategic weight. But the piece left untouched, the one that lingers in silence, haunts the opponent. Its potential creates fear. Your absence must function the same way. Not weakness, but a presence sharpened by withdrawal. Reflect on this. Why did emperors surround themselves with layers of ceremony, guards, and protocols? It was not simply vanity. It was strategy. Distance elevated them above the masses. The further away they seemed, the more divine they appeared. When respect is lacking, proximity is your enemy. Withdrawal is your sword. Perhaps you fear that withdrawing will make you forgotten. But here lies the paradox: people forget what they see too often. What is always in their grasp becomes invisible. What vanishes is remembered. Let me ask you, who is more respected? The king who dines nightly with his people, or the one glimpsed only on sacred occasions when the entire kingdom waits breathlessly for his arrival? The former is liked, the latter is feared and remembered. You must decide what you wish to be, liked or respected. Do not confuse the two. One gives you comfort. The other gives you power. Even the most ordinary man can manufacture respect if he learns to withdraw. Stop explaining yourself. Stop justifying your every move. Stop standing in the marketplace of attention, hoping to be noticed. Step back. Let the silence speak for you. Let them wonder. Let them miss what they once ignored. Withdraw not as retreat, but as repositioning. Like a general pulling his forces into the hills, waiting for the right moment to strike. Absence prepares the field. And when you re-enter, Your presence crashes down like thunder. This is how you transform neglect into reverence. By making yourself scarce, by creating distance where once there was familiarity, by teaching others, through silence, that your presence is not to be taken lightly. Remember this truth: the man who is always seen is never respected. The man who is absent at the right moment is feared, desired, and remembered. So withdraw, not forever, but long enough to make them hunger for your return, because respect is not given. It is extracted from the void your absence creates. And once you have mastered this, you will understand why the next law of handling disrespect is not silence at all, but a strike, sharp and precise, that leaves no doubt of your strength. Fury is the weapon of the powerless. Precision is the weapon of the ruler. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is to burn hot, to lash out, to make them feel the sting of your rage. But tell me, what does this achieve? You reveal your wound. You show that their contempt pierced you, and in that moment, you hand them power. Respect cannot be reclaimed through outbursts. It must be restored with calculation. History is filled with rulers destroyed by their tempers. Think of Caligula, the Roman emperor who drowned in his own fury. Every insult, every slight drove him into blind vengeance. At first, his wrath inspired fear, but soon it turned into mockery, into rebellion, into the dagger that finally cut him down. Now contrast him with Octavian, later Augustus. He never wasted his anger in the open. When insulted, he smiled, bowed, or stayed silent, but behind closed doors, his enemies began to vanish. Not in chaos, not in fury, but one by one, with surgical precision. The Senate feared Caligula's madness, but they respected Augustus's silence because it meant death moved quietly in the shadows. So I ask you, when someone disrespects you, will you roar like Caligula? Or will you wait, observe, and strike like Augustus? Psychology confirms what rulers knew for centuries: displays of fury are confessions of weakness. The one who shouts admits they cannot persuade. The one who rages admits they cannot control themselves. And if you cannot control yourself, why should anyone else respect you? But precision, that is power. To withhold your retaliation, to choose the perfect moment, and to let your response fall like a blade in the dark. This terrifies people. They begin to second-guess their every move around you. They fear not only what you will do, but when you will do it. Think of the chessboard again. The novice throws every piece forward, reckless, furious, desperate to overwhelm. The master waits, keeps the board calm, and then sacrifices one piece to shatter the opponent's defenses. One move, one strike. The game's your life is no different. Strike not with fury, but with timing. A well-placed silence. A subtle withdrawal of favor. An unexpected denial of something they depend on. These are daggers sharper than any word screamed in anger. Let me give you an example you know too well: the workplace. Imagine a colleague mocks you in front of others. The fool's instinct is to lash back immediately, to argue, to raise the voice, and in that instant, the crowd sees two equals in conflict. Respect is lost, but the strategist, he smiles, he allows the laughter, he gives nothing away. Days later, when no one is watching, he undermines his opponent's credibility with a single sentence, whispered at the right ear, delivered at the right moment. The insult is forgotten, but the rival's career slowly unravels. This is precision. Even in personal life, the principle stands. The partner who screams when disrespected loses dignity. The partner who withdraws affection, who delivers one cold line that cuts deeper than 100 arguments, that partner commands respect. You do not need many words. One line, chosen carefully, will echo louder than 1,000. Think also of reputation. When you are known as the one who rarely reacts, but when you do, it is devastating. People hesitate to cross you. Your silence becomes a threat. Your patience becomes a weapon. Your restraint becomes the mask that hides the blade. So discipline yourself. When the fire rises in your chest, smother it. When the insult burns in your ear, do not respond. Train your face to remain calm, your tone even, your body still. Let them think they have triumphed. Then, when the moment is forgotten, when they least expect it, you strike. Not with rage, not with noise, but with a precision that cannot be ignored. Remember, this respect is not won by loudness. It is won by the quiet certainty that crossing you has consequences. The furious man is laughed at. The precise man is feared. So hold your fire, sharpen the blade, and when you finally release it, make sure it cuts so deeply that no one ever forgets, because silence and patience prepare the ground. But the next law demands something even greater: how to use not only your own power, but the power of others to enforce respect without lifting a finger. Respect does not exist in a vacuum. It flows from perception, and perception is shaped by the company you keep. You may be intelligent, capable, even formidable on your own, but if you stand alone, many will dismiss you. Yet when you surround yourself with allies, with symbols of status and influence, those same people will bow their heads. Why? Because human beings are herd animals. We look to others to decide who is worthy of respect. If others honor you, we assume you are valuable. If others ignore you, we assume you are nothing. This is not justice. This is psychology. Consider the rise of Lorenzo de' Medici in Florence. He was not the strongest fighter, nor the most brilliant philosopher. But he gathered artists, thinkers, and powerful families around him. He became the sun, and others orbited him. Even his enemies hesitated, because to oppose him was to oppose the entire constellation he had built. He borrowed respect from those who stood beside him, and in time, it became his own. Ask yourself who surrounds you. Do you walk with men who elevate your presence, or with those who drag it into the mud? If people who respect you are seen at your side, their respect multiplies. If fools and failures are your companions, their stench clings to you as well. Psychologists describe this as social proof. When others admire you publicly, observers assume you deserve admiration. This is why endorsements, alliances, and appearances with powerful figures shape reputations more than any speech or self-praise. Respect spreads by contagion. You must learn to infect others with it. Think of the battlefield. A lone knight charging forward may be brave, but he is easily crushed. Yet when an army marches behind him, his courage appears divine. The knight has not changed, only the perception of him. And perception is everything. Even in daily life, the rule applies. Imagine a man in the workplace constantly disrespected by peers. He could argue, defend himself, demand recognition. It will change nothing. But if he wins the favor of one influential superior, if he is seen laughing with the boss or trusted by the respected leader, suddenly the same peers treat him differently. Nothing in his skill changed, only the perception carried by alliance. Do you see the truth? Respect is rarely earned alone. It is constructed, brick by brick, through networks, appearances, and affiliations. Think also of your enemies. The wise ruler does not fight alone. He aligns himself with powers greater than his own, and their shadow protects him. Even the most arrogant will hesitate to disrespect you if they know others will rise in your defense. Your allies do not even need to act, only to exist, standing visibly at your side, shaping perception like silent bodyguards. This is why kings married into powerful families, why generals sought the favor of priests, why merchants funded artists to glorify their names. Status bleeds into you when you stand close enough to it, and once it bleeds, it stains perception permanently. Now, ask yourself a darker question: what happens if you are disrespected publicly? Do you argue with the offender? No. You let others argue for you. If you have cultivated allies wisely, their voices rise, and suddenly the disrespecter looks isolated, small, and foolish. Your silence, supported by their defense, appears majestic. Their loyalty multiplies your authority. This is why building alliances is not merely a strategy. It is armor. Without it, every insult pierces your skin. With it, the arrows bounce off. Not because you are invincible, but because others hold the shield. Do not misunderstand. This is not about friendship. It is about utility. Allies are not chosen for comfort. They are chosen for influence. They are the mirrors that reflect your image brighter than you can alone. But here lies the hidden danger. If respect can be multiplied by allies, it can also be destroyed by them. Choose poorly, and their shame becomes yours. One scandal tied to your circle infects your own reputation. Thus, the wise strategist selects companions as carefully as a ruler selects soldiers. Only the capable, the respected, the feared. Never the desperate or the weak. So I ask you, who in your life could you stand beside to magnify your presence? Whose respect, once visible, would compel others to respect you as well? Bind yourself to them, and let their aura cloak you like armor. Because respect is not always conquered with words or deeds. Often, it is borrowed from the power of others, until it becomes inseparable from your own. And yet, what if you could go further? What if you did not simply borrow respect, but seized it directly by exploiting the weaknesses of those who stand against you? That, my friend, every man carries a chain. Some chains are visible, debts, addictions, obligations. Others are hidden, insecurities, desires, fears. And the one who finds these chains and tugs them in silence commands respect more surely than through any loud display of strength. You see, people rarely respect virtue alone. They respect control. And nothing gives you more control than the secret knowledge of another's weakness. History is full of such examples. Think of César Borgia. He rarely wasted effort in open conflict. Instead, he uncovered what his rivals loved, what they feared, what they needed most, and then he turned those levers quietly. One duke longed for gold, César bought his loyalty. Another feared exposure of betrayal, César hinted at knowledge he may or may not have held. The man folded. No armies needed, no open rage, only quiet pressure applied where it hurt most. Ask yourself, do you truly know the people around you? Not their surface masks, not their polished appearances, but their true weaknesses. The insult that stings them most. The desire that drives them at night. The secret they would beg you never to reveal. Respect grows when others sense you can wound them at will, yet choose not to. It is not your kindness they respect. It is your restraint. Psychologists call this leverage of weakness a power asymmetry. One side knows more than the other, holds the cards, controls the narrative. The weaker party bends. Not because they want to, but because they must. Think of it in personal terms. Perhaps someone disrespects you in public. Do you answer with words? No. You study them. You notice their patterns, their pride in being admired, their fear of being ridiculed. And when the moment is right, you release one observation, one subtle remark that cuts to the bone of their insecurity. Not shouted, not obvious, but sharp enough that they never dare mock you again. This is the art of the quiet dagger. You do not need to strike often. You only need to strike once, in the place they cannot defend. Consider another example, the workplace again. A superior belittles you. To argue openly is to lose. But if you discover his weakness, perhaps his dependency on a key contact, or his fear of a hidden mistake, you need not even expose it. A single suggestion, a subtle reminder that you know, is enough to alter his tone with you forever. He does not respect you because you fought back. He respects you because you touched his chain. Understand this weakness is not always shameful. Sometimes it is desire. The man who craves admiration, the woman who craves security, the leader who craves loyalty. If you can feed or deny these cravings, you control them. They respect you not out of love, but out of dependence. But here is the danger. You must never reveal the extent of your knowledge. Expose everything, and they will resist with desperation. Keep it hidden, and they will fear your silence more than your words. What is uncertain is always more terrifying than what is known. Think of the predator in the wild. It does not roar to announce itself. It stalks, it waits. It studies the herd, and when it strikes, it goes for the throat. One bite, and the battle is finished before it begins. So too must you behave with those who disrespect you. Do not show them your claws until you are ready to use them. And when you do, strike where they are weakest, and then return to silence. The impression will last longer than 100 speeches. Now ask yourself, whose chain do you already see? Whose fear, whose desire, whose dependence is dangling in plain sight, waiting for you to seize it? Most people tell you their weaknesses without realizing it. Listen carefully. The louder someone boasts, the more fragile their pride. The harsher someone judges, the more they hide their own flaws. The one who mocks others most is often the one most terrified of ridicule. Respect is built not only on what you reveal about yourself, but on what you conceal about others. The keeper of secrets becomes the master of men, because they know you could break them, and you choose not to. Yet, so cultivate this discipline, observe silently, collect weaknesses patiently, hold them as weapons in reserve, and use them with precision so quiet it seems almost accidental. Because those who disrespect you must one day learn that you carry their chain, and when you tug it, they will bow, not out of choice, but out of necessity. But what if they test you further, not with hidden vulnerabilities, but with blatant challenges? Then it is time to build not in silence, but in stone, to establish boundaries as immovable as fortress walls. A fortress does not ask to be respected, it demands it. Walls, gates, and towers, these are not mere stones, they are symbols of authority, of limits, of untouchable power. And so too must your life be built with boundaries that make others hesitate before they dare approach. Disrespect thrives where boundaries are absent. When others see that you tolerate small insults, they escalate to greater ones. Like an army testing the walls of a city, they probe for weakness. And if they find none, they retreat. But if they find a single crack, they widen it until your defenses crumble. Ask yourself, how often have you allowed someone to speak to you in a way they should not? How often have you laughed off a slight, excused bad behavior, told yourself it is not worth the fight? Each time, you handed over a stone from your fortress wall. And once the wall is gone, rebuilding it is 10 times harder. History teaches us this truth. Consider the Roman limes, the fortified borders of the empire. They were not built only to stop invaders, but to send a message, this far and no further. Those who respected the line were tolerated. Those who tested it were crushed without hesitation. The empire survived as long as those boundaries held. And when the walls weakened, when the message of strength faded, the barbarians poured through, and Rome fell. Your life is no different. If you allow constant trespass, do not be surprised when you are overrun. Psychologists call this boundary enforcement. When people learn that violations come with consequences, they adapt their behavior. When they see no consequence, they push further. It is not malice, it is human nature. Children test parents. Employees test bosses. Friends test friends. Not because they seek destruction, but because they measure your strength. And strength is respected. So how do you build a fortress in daily life? Not with stone, but with discipline. You decide what you will allow and what you will not. You enforce it quietly, consistently, without apology. For example, if someone interrupts you constantly, you do not laugh and allow it. You cut them off once, firmly, and resume your point. One act of resistance, delivered coldly, builds the wall. If a colleague makes a joke at your expense, you do not smile nervously. You look at them calmly, without amusement, until the silence stings more than any words could. Again, the wall rises. Boundaries are not loud, they are silent signals. They are the refusal to be treated as less than you demand. The refusal to laugh at disrespect. The refusal to justify or explain your limits. A fortress does not explain its walls. It simply stands and others recognize their power. But remember, a boundary without enforcement is nothing but a painted line on sand. You must defend it. Not always with fury. Often with the cold, unshakable certainty that violations will cost the violator. One consequence, delivered once, is more effective than 100 warnings. Think of the lion in the wild. It does not roar at every approach. But when another animal crosses the invisible line of its territory, the lion acts. One swift attack, and no creature forgets the lesson. Its silence afterward is its power. The land is respected because the boundary was enforced. Do not confuse boundaries with cruelty. The fortress does not hate those outside its walls, it simply refuses entry. Likewise, you do not need to hate those who disrespect you. You simply deny them the freedom to repeat the act. It is not emotion, it is structure. And here is the paradox. People respect those who enforce boundaries more than those who bend. Even those who test you will come to value your firmness. Why? Because clarity is strength. And strength inspires respect far more than indulgence. Now reflect, where in your life are your walls weak? Who crosses them daily because you fear confrontation? And what will happen if you do nothing? The answer is simple. Disrespect will multiply until it destroys the last remnants of your authority. So build your fortress now, stone by stone, act by act, word by word. Make your limits known, not through endless speeches, but through calm, consistent action. And once you have built them, never allow a single stone to be removed. Because respect is not born from kindness. It is born from structure, from the silent walls that others dare not test twice. And yet, even a fortress cannot protect you from everything. For there is a weapon more chilling, more devastating than walls or retaliation. It is indifference, the art of rendering your enemies invisible. The most terrifying weapon in power is not rage. It is not punishment. It is indifference. When someone disrespects you, they seek one thing above all else: a reaction. To argue, to defend yourself, to lash out. These are gifts to them. You confirm their importance. You prove they can move you. But when you meet contempt with absolute indifference, you crush them without lifting a finger. Respect does not always come from retaliation. Sometimes it is born from the cold realization that they cannot reach you at all. History reveals this truth. Consider the emperors of the Byzantine court. Courtiers schemed endlessly for their favor, hoping to provoke a glance, a word, a sign of acknowledgement. And yet, the emperor often gave nothing. His silence carried more weight than 1,000 decrees. One gesture of indifference was enough to end a career, to reduce a rival to dust. Why? Because to be ignored is worse than to be hated. Ask yourself, what burns you more, the man who screams at you in anger, or the one who acts as if you are invisible? The scream at least proves you matter. Indifference erases you. Psychologists call this the extinction principle. When behavior is ignored, it withers. A child who throws tantrums grows quiet when no attention is given. An enemy who insults you weakens when you deny them the satisfaction of reaction. Your silence becomes the ultimate weapon because it starves them of relevance. Think also of reputation. When others see you unmoved by disrespect, they draw one conclusion: you are above it. And when you appear above an insult, your stature rises, while the one who tried to diminish you looks desperate, small, and pathetic. This is how kings behaved when mocked by peasants. They did not descend into the mud. They acted as though the noise beneath their throne did not exist. The throne itself was the answer. Consider a modern example. A colleague mocks you in front of others. If you argue, the group sees a fight between equals. But if you meet the insult with calm indifference, if you continue your work, or even look past the offender as though they were a shadow, the crowd sees something else entirely. They see imbalance. One man shouting at a wall that does not move. And in that stillness, your authority multiplies. But indifference must be genuine. If you pretend to ignore while seething inside, the mask cracks. They will sense it. True indifference is forged from discipline, from the ability to detach your emotions and treat provocations as whispers in the wind. This does not mean passivity. Indifference is not surrender, it is dominance. Because you choose what deserves your energy, your words, your wrath. And most people do not deserve it. To treat them as significant enough to provoke anger is to give them more power than they deserve. Reflect on this: lions do not chase flies. The fly buzzes, mocks, provokes, but the lion does not lower itself. It saves its strength for prey worthy of the hunt. So too must you. The buzzing of fools should not move you. Of course, there will be times when retaliation is necessary, when boundaries must be enforced, when weakness must be exploited. But reserve your strikes for those who matter, for those whose downfall strengthens you. For the rest, your indifference is more devastating than any blow. And here lies the paradox. When you stop seeking respect, when you act as though disrespect is beneath you, people begin to respect you more. Because respect flows not from hunger, but from abundance. He who appears needy is despised. He who appears untouchable is revered. Ask yourself now who in your life deserves not your anger, but your indifference. Who grows powerful only because you feed them with your attention? And what would happen if, starting today, you rendered them invisible? Do not waste your time proving your worth to those who refuse to see it. Withdraw your energy. Withhold your reaction. Starve them, until their disrespect rots in silence, unnoticed, unreturned, unimportant. Because the greatest insult you can give an enemy is not to fight them. It is to act as though they do not exist. And yet, there is one final truth. Indifference is not only a weapon against enemies, it is also a weapon against yourself, against your own fears, your own desires, your own need for validation. Master this, and you master not only others, but yourself. Power does not announce itself. It moves in silence, through scarcity, precision, alliances, hidden chains, unshakable boundaries, and the chilling weapon of indifference. This is how you control people, without them ever realizing it. Not by pleading, not by rage, but by shaping their behavior as a sculptor shapes stone, one cut at a time. Do you see the pattern now? The world bows not to fairness, but to strength disguised as inevitability. To the one who does not fight for respect, but commands it. And if you master these laws, you will not merely survive disrespect, you will use it to dominate those who thought themselves above you. So I ask you, which of these strategies will you use first? Which weakness will you exploit? Which wall will you build? Which silence will you wield? Tell me in the comments. And if you hunger for more strategies of power, deception, and human nature, subscribe. Share this with those who need to understand the darker truths of respect. The game is always being played. The only question is whether you play it or are played by it.